Hi, Assalamualaikum. So today my group will present to you about the mini project for business law. Okay, so my name is Norizati Fasam. This one day I will explain to you about the consideration, which is the issue and the law. Okay, so guys, before we continue about the consideration, I will explain to you about the scenario. Okay, this scenario is about the Madam Yusuf who have a son and offer her son to further study at College Professional Mara in Ipoh and take the course accountancy. She offered to give 1,000 as monthly expenses and one terrace house. Okay, after 6 months, it have a misunderstanding, and Madam Useful asked Useless to leave the house that he live, and Useless have frustrated and he want to take a legal action. So guys, I will explain the consideration about the scenario. Okay, about the consideration based on the Malaysian law of contract, in order to create a valid contract, it must have 5 elements, which is the offer, consideration, acceptance, certainty and consent. Okay, so the relevant section for this scenario is at the section 26 Contract Act 1950, where in this section that every agreement must have consideration. If did not have the consideration, the contract will void. Okay guys, you see it? Okay, so based on this provision, we can understand in order to make valid contract of consideration must be something written to something else. For example, if the Madam Useless make an offer, and the if Madam Useful make an offer and Useless agreed, it must have a consideration between that. Okay, so if there is no consideration, the contract will void. Okay, so there is the consideration of the issue and the law. Okay, so that's it for me. That's from me, and my friend will continue about the application and the conclusion of this consideration. Okay, so enjoy guys.
My name is Intan Nur Aisha binti Nurizam, PDL 1905002 from DLM 4B. The relevant section for this situation in Section 26 Contract Act 1950, where in this section stated that every agreement without consideration is void. Based on this provision, we can understand that in order to make a valid contract of consideration must be something that is given in return for something else. If the contract is void, so there is no legal relation to enable the other party to take legal action if other parties breach the contract. The relevant case for this situation is the Fatin was a sales advisor at Proton, a well-known car dealer in Johor Bahru. She worked there for 2 years after finishing her secondary school. One day, her dad, Mr. Yusof, contact Fatin and pursue her to return to Ipoh for her study in accountancy at College Professional Mara Ipoh. Mr. Yusof offered to provide her 1,500 ringgit as her monthly expenses and a single-story terrace house if she would agree to return and further study. Taking that as a great opportunity, Fatin agreed to the offer. After 6 months of her return, there was misunderstanding between Fatin and Mr. Yusof. Her dad stopped giving the expenses and asked her to leave the house she was living in. Fatin was very frustrated. She would like to take legal action against her dad for the monthly expenses as well as a vacant position of the house. Fatin cannot take legal action because the contract is not valid. At the first place, where the material fact of the contract which they are not have any writing form to make a proof at court, and the offers was unenforceable. Based on the above law, Useless cannot take legal action against Madam Useful, because the contract is void at the first place. The contract become void because the contract have a lack element of requirement to make agreement that have natural love and affection between parties standing in near relation to each other become the valid contract. The important element in the contract must express in writing, but this scenario didn't have any reasonable form. If the contract have agreement and sign both party that show they agree to give something return for each other, the contract will be valid. We can conclude that useless cannot take legal action against Madam Useful because the contract by both parties is void.
Hello and Assalamualaikum. My name is Nidna Najwa binti Imam Maris from DLM 4B. For the intention to create legal relation, 11 case for this situation, useless enter an agreement with Madam Useful, which is useless returned to Ipoh, and further he studied in accountancy course in College Professional Mara Ipoh. Madam Useful offered to provide him 1,000 ringgit for his monthly expenses and single story house. After 6 months, there were misunderstanding between them. So, Madam Useful decided to stop giving Useless the expenses and asked him to leave the house he was living in, and Useless was very frustrated. Useless decided to take legal action against Madam Useful. Okay, for the issue in this case is whether Useless can take legal action against his mother for breach the contract, because Madam Useful stopped giving the expenses and asked him to leave the house he was living in. Okay, for the law, Useless cannot take legal action against Madam Useful. Because of what? Because of the contract was not valid, because the contract were not made in writing.
Hi, Assalamualaikum. My name is Yusrina Shakira binti Muhammad Yusof from DLM 4B. So I will cover for application and conclusion for intention to create legal relation. That is question 2. Okay, so for the application, Useless cannot take the legal action against Madam Useful because Useless accept the offer where Useless are ready to face any implication if Madam Useful fail to perform the term under the contract. So at the first, the contract is void. Either it was not written contract between Useless and Madam Useful. The contract was lack of certainty. Madam Useful supposed to indicate how long she will provide the monthly expense and single story house to Useless. So for the conclusion, Useless cannot take the legal action to the Madam Useful because it was void at the first. So Useless cannot take the legal action for the conclusion. Okay, thank you.